Welcome to the Industry 4.0 Club's Fireside Chat. The club's purpose is to engage the power of diverse worldwide talent to accelerate the global evolution to Industry 4.0. We accomplish this by hosting and supporting respectful, thoughtful, and interdisciplinary conversations and creating quality content on wide-ranging Industry 4.0 topics to expand the reach of our community. My name is Mike Ungar, and I am the CEO of the Industry 4.0 Club. I have over 40 years of leadership and manufacturing experience, most of that with Michelin. I'm joined today by my co-host, Mike Yost, who's chairman of the club. Mike, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yeah, not at all, Mike. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. As Mike said, my name is Mike Yost. I'm the volunteer chairman of the Industry 4.0 Club, one of its founders, and Mike's co-host on these fireside chats. Spent the last 35 years in industry, with the last 15 being on the industrial nonprofit side, hosting these types of conversations and helping people figure out where we are and where we're headed together. So today, I'm really excited that we're going to be talking with Erin Donovan, the CEO of Conovar. And the session is entitled Tapping into the Future, Combating the Retirement Crisis and Preserving Tribal Knowledge. So Erin Donovan is the CEO, and she's a distinguished leader in learning and organizational design. She's renowned for her extensive experience in creating and tailoring training programs that align seamlessly with workforce dynamics and business growth objectives. With an impressive track record spanning diverse industries, including retail, logistics, technology, manufacturing, nonprofits, education, agriculture, and financial services, Erin has become a driving force behind corporate excellence by introducing measured growth strategies grounded in her practical and academic experience. So we look forward to interacting with Erin, learning from her, and for those of you that are listening in on LinkedIn, we encourage you to go ahead and drop questions into the comment section as we're going along. We will do our best to get to them and have Erin respond.
So Thank you so much, Mike and Mike. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be a great conversation.
Excellent. No, we're glad you could join us, Erin. So maybe we can start off and I know we talk about the impending retirement crisis in manufacturing. Mm-hmm. Can you start by telling us a little bit about why this is such a critical industry issue for industry from your perspective?
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting time for manufacturers because the people we're losing are our cultural glue. How many people do you both know who have been in one job for 40 years? Or have you both been in one job for 40 years? Yeah. Well, I know some of my clients, when they're losing people, they're losing 40 years of knowledge. And we're just not going to be able to recover that. You know, when you look at retention on a number by number basis, it's not telling you the whole story. When people are walking out of the door, they're taking with them 15, 10, 20, 30, 50 years of knowledge. And that's why this is such a culture crisis. It's not just about numbers. It's about trying to capture and share that wealth of knowledge and that legacy of practice.
I think it's interesting, too, that how much that knowledge seeps in with others. So I've spent a number of years in industry, as I mentioned earlier, and selling systems to leadership. And I've had more conversations than I can count with business leaders and ask them about how things succeed and what makes things work. And they typically turn and say it comes down to the people because of that knowledge and experience that you're talking about.
Yeah. And, it's so hard to quantify what it looks like outside of the SOP. There's all those small tips and tricks, but more than that, it's the stories. When you walk with some of these people and they're telling you, it used to be this. And did you know when we were owned by here, it was this? I mean, that goes far beyond what you can do through a training program or a platform. It's really about the stories. And that's one thing that we're losing.
Yeah, it's a great comment. It's kind of thinking about what you said, and I kind of put things into two categories, it sounds like. One category is, how to run the equipment and how to fix things, that kind of thing, that tribal knowledge. But then there's also the cultural tribal knowledge that you're talking about. What's the history of the company? It's a great comment. I think I mentioned I spent a long time with Michelin, and there are folks that are now retiring that will tell you stories about when Francois Michelin from who was at the time came to visit the plant, and the things that he would do. And we're talking now 15, 20 years ago, but that's very much culture. And we're at Mitchell's at a point now where the family no longer runs the business; it's run by others. And so that idea that the family, we met one of the patrons of the company. His grandfather started the business. You can't replace those stories when folks, it's just really important.
Yeah. And too, Mike, it's this idea that I can problem solve. We can train people, and through a good onboarding program, you've got 40, maybe 50% of what you need to do. But what you have to do, no, that comes through practice, and it comes through figuring it out. And it also comes with the agency that I'm allowed to figure this out. I have enough tools where I can find the right answers. And of course, you can't teach that. You do have to have some tool that I can go to learn beyond just what's in a training program. And I grew up in Pueblo, Colorado. Those of you who are fellow Pueblos, we grew up in the shadow of the steel mill. And so, when you think about that very high profile, very dangerous, very, hot, horrible environment, people loved it. That was their culture. That shaped Pueblo. So thinking through how you could replicate standing next to someone who's been in that culture, who can teach you how to problem solve when things happen that no one can anticipate. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? How do we do that?
And do you have a sense, Erin, how much of it is process or application knowledge, as far as maybe the value versus the cultural pieces? Because I'm thinking to your point, like I know people understand like how, if a machine's running right by how it sounds, right, or if they smell something, right, you get this sense for things. But if I can sense there's a problem, is it culturally okay for me to jump in and fix it, or do I need to have permission, or do I need to wait until an alarm goes off or something like that?
Yeah, that's interesting. And that goes to the short term, long term. So short term, let's say I can do 50% of things based on my training, right? And it's just always going to be rote. It's always going to be practice. It's going to be those things that I anticipate. But I think equally, another 50% is, to your point, when do I call? Who do I call? Is it okay? But let's look at the flip side of that culture. Our new learners do not want to ask questions. They don't want to feel that vulnerability of, I don't know. Am I going to lose my job if I say, I don't know, I'm unsure, I can't make this decision? So either they'll stand by idly and not do anything, or they'll get frustrated and they'll leave. So this idea of tribal knowledge builds mastery beyond skill. It builds mastery to have this idea that I know what to do next and I'm enabled to do it.
It's a really interesting point. I'm sorry, Mike. Erin keeps triggering off thoughts for me, but I know. As we talk about putting systems in place, putting technology in place to monitor things and such, I had a conversation not long ago with a plant manager, and was talking about when they went from not having systems with visibility until they did. And then the first time that he walked into the plant that there was a problem overnight, and now he had the data to know there was a problem overnight. And when he walked in and walked the floor, he asked everybody how everything went, and everybody's like, well, it's all good, right? And they didn't raise it at all. But he really had to balance because they worked it out. So it's one thing to not want to ask. It's another thing to well, it didn't raise to the level to where I needed to tell you or call you about it. And so that's probably a real cultural blend you have to balance there and learn as well, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And, it's also this cultural blend of, I'm so used to walking next to Carl, who's telling me what to do. And now I feel comfortable. And now Carl's gone and there's a system or there's an avatar and I don't know how to interact. So it is trying to balance the human element, the success. I have done the problem solving, and I have the systems that tell me actually what goes on. So I think it's building transparency, and it's really emphasizing that problem solving is a core part of our culture. And sometimes problem solving is failing. And so I hate to be trite, but sometimes we do need to fail forward. And that's what the human element does, that tribal sense of, well, but when we do make mistakes, this is what we do. And that red button, don't touch it ever. So drawing those barriers of when it's okay to make mistakes. And I think as much as I'm a huge proponent of AI, we just may not have some partners who are ready for that. So we do need that. Well, what's next? How can we successfully capture, monitor, provide people with success so that even though Carl isn't there, they still feel that human interaction?
I just want to remind folks who are listening in on LinkedIn that we're talking to Erin Donovan, the CEO of Conovar, and the opportunity exists to ask her questions. So if you do have a question for her, please put it in the comment box and we'll do our best to get it to her before we finish today. Erin, you mentioned earlier the balance between short-term and long-term. Can you kind of get a little more in depth there and kind of explain the benefits of capturing this in both the short-term and what do you mean by short-term benefits and long-term benefits?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things I do is when I work with my clients, we create a plan. So a big part of what my, I guess, internal value system is returning on investment. I want to make sure that when I work for people, they feel like, yeah, I get why Erin is here. So what the short term is, where are your points of pressure? So when we don't have tribal knowledge to help us solve problems, points of pressure explode. Areas where there's potential safety risks, areas where we do need problem solving skills, even areas where we've got to keep the lines running. Some of our plants are 24/7. So if we stop those lines, that's a huge, huge blow to our net production. So the first things first, you have to decide in your short term, where are those pressure points? Where are those gaps that if I can't successfully problem solve, there's going to be a problem. Long term, you've got to say, what part of my organization do I need to maintain for retention? So, for example, long term, if culturally, as Mike pointed out, we let people solve problems and we celebrate transparency, well, that's what tribal knowledge gives us. Long term, if our culture is we have picnics and we have a newspaper or we have this, we've got to maintain those systems because that helps us recruit and retain our best people. So short term, it's all about production, but long term, it's about staying viable as an organization because not only are we going to have a retiring crisis, but we're going to have a hiring crisis. So you want to do everything you can to differentiate your building from the next building down the road.
So you want to talk maybe for a minute, Erin, about ways to capture tribal knowledge? Are there different techniques, approaches, maybe some of the advantages or disadvantages of the different approaches?
I think in the 1920s, we had it right. We had people go all over this country and they captured stories with the CCC. So whether it was people living in the Appalachians or, new people on the scene and getting poetry and stories, all of this, we were capturing it on audio. Now, it seems like, Erin, that's pretty archaic. But the first things first is you capture people's story. Now, I think the most impactful tool that we have is our phone. So I can open that phone, I can get a video, and I can capture everything you're doing. So not only are you telling me your story, but I'm capturing your hand motions. I'm capturing how many steps it takes. I'm seeing that you nod this, not that. So the easiest way I can answer that is take a video. That's why we've all learned through YouTube, right? In the real world, when we learn, we go to YouTube because we can watch a video. But the most important question I ask anyone is, tell me. You don't script it. You don't try to put them in a box. Just tell me about it. And then not only will you get to see their tips and tricks, but then the culture comes out. Then the stories come out. Listen, we can edit it all day long. So it's a 2-minute clip of what they do. But that unedited section, think about the possibilities of really building a legacy wall, a legacy library. That's where it comes in. So I know it sounds simple, but take a video and ask a question. Tell me about it.
I think my kids would agree with you that the phone is the most powerful technology today.
You know,
No,
for those of us who used to have a Blue Princess phone that had a dial on it, listen, we were waiting for a date. It was pretty, powerful back then too.
I love it. That's great. No, the idea of taking a video. No, I think you hit it on the head. I've been through. I know in my experience, we at least 3 different programs to capture knowledge before it retired, and each of them have failed because they were strictly, let's see how we can write it down, and then we catalog it, and then we blah blah blah, and you can never capture everything, and no one wanted to sit down and write things. And this idea of, so tell me, your point. Tell me what you do, and you put it on video, and then you use it's tremendous. The difference is huge. So I appreciate you sharing that. I do remember the challenges there.
And like maybe to tag on to what you're talking about there, one of the things that always is still a question in my mind, and maybe Erin can comment as well, is when you did that process, did it always feel like it was the company trying to take from the employee? Like, is there ever a pushback that, like, I have 40 years of experience and you're trying to pull it out of me, and what am I getting in return?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't. Maybe Erin, I could just respond and then jump in for you, but no, I don't think we felt that way because we had a strong culture, a strong company culture, and we were willing to, we wanted the company to live beyond us. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't really we didn't feel threatened with that per se, is what I'm sharing to you. But but our calendars were so full, we didn't have time to sit down and put that stuff together. And half of us didn't want to, how do I describe this? We were, if I could say this, unconsciously competent. We could never write it down. We just knew how to do it. Anyway, Erin, you were going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you either. And I completely agree with you. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to get people on camera, but it's so funny that when you go on the floor and you have a camera and you start asking questions, people will just come up and start talking to you. We have to remember that no one's celebrating their legacy. So when you're going to retire, we want to get it on tape. This is not us trying to push you out the door. And, when I first really got into video-based training, I had that same question. Would I feel threatened if I were going to retire and someone said, all right, we're going to videotape everything you do? But if you don't videotape everything you do, everything I've learned is lost. And let's put it this way. I'm going on maternity or paternity leave, and I have to explain to my replacement what I do. I can write it down, or I can start on Monday and video and screencast everything I do until it's time for me to leave. It hasn't disturbed my flow of work. I've captured everything that I need to do. And by the way, I've now created a training library that I can use even beyond just my maternity leave. It's as simple as that. It actually makes that knowledge transfer so much simpler than write everything down or just say goodbye and we'll try to replicate what you've done.
So you want to stick with that for just a minute, the video-based approach that you're talking about, maybe share some examples or best practices for folks on how to do that?
So when the company started in Ireland, one of their most powerful use cases were these high attrition roles that, people come in and they leave. And it almost took more time to train than it did to retain and to keep. So also in this role, there were all of these little tricks. It was with a laser cutter and they were hard to explain and it took a lot of time. And the main operator, if he wasn't training, he wasn't working. So what they did is we went to the factory and we just recorded. We started at the beginning of the day. We gave him a lapel microphone, which, by the way, manufacturing partners got to have a lapel microphone because it's loud. And then we just recorded. We didn't disturb his work and we had a complete library. And then that particular client also did not have to rely on the vendor anymore, because they had their training library and they didn't have to bring off-site trainers. It was really successful. Another use case was looking at HR. So one woman did payroll every Monday. She could not take a vacation. And so she just started screencasting everything she did. And automatically there was that knowledge transfer that's so important.
Those are really good examples. Thank you for sharing them. Mike, you were gonna.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, as you build this body of knowledge and such, then that leads into the possibility of AI and learning and, having agents and such learn the HR function or the laser cutting function or things like that. So where do you see, you mentioned earlier that you're a big proponent and fan of AI, but we went down the path of the cultural kind of thing. So maybe talk about that as a technology.
Yeah. So I think video is a great conduit to someday being able to take these videos, put them through the AI machine, and come out with a set of instructions. I don't think anything will ever replace watching someone do something. I don't think anything will ever replace the sound of my voice, the small motions that I do as a human. That it can come close, believe me. I've seen some great avatars, but also knowing that, again, I keep using Carl worked here. I know who Carl was. And so as I think that AI someday will revolutionize what we do especially in manufacturing, there are a lot of us that are not ready. We don't have the time that it takes for the development. We don't have the time it takes for the training, and we may simply just not have the budget. We do have a budget to create and to capture the videos that are most important to us. And like I said, if you look at how people learn in the real world, they watch a video. So let's use that and let's actually replicate that in the places that we work.
How would you imagine delivery of that information on the floor, for example? Because we would take and put these massive binders out by the work post and hope someone would open them up.
Yeah.
How do you deliver the video based learning that you're talking about?
So this is probably the hardest step. You have to have your supervisors say, "Have you looked at the video?" So you need a platform or a tool that easily disseminates this, organizes the information. But there are a lot of really great tools out there. My company has one. There's a lot of companies who do. The point of it is find a tool that organizes your information and creates smart ways to find it, whether it's the creation of QR codes that you can actually put all over your factory, or it's easy to find keywords or easy to find file structures. What's going to kill this is putting it on SharePoint and having people search through folders. But also what's going to kill this is not having buy-in from your supervisors. They have to really believe that these videos are good enough to help people problem solve. So when I think about implementation, the first step is culture. So we are now changing our approach. When people say, "How do I?" you say, "Watch the video first, and then come back to me with questions." But for our new learner, that's perfect because they can watch the video, they can stop, start, they can see it again, they can actually pause it so I can see this one moment. And then the questions they have makes them feel more like an informed adult rather than a child trying to get permission. And all of those power relationships are really important to retention. I think we overlook them way too much. When I feel like an adult at my job who masters what I do, I will stay in that job. When I feel like I have to constantly ask permission, when I feel unsure, it's easy to get a job down the road. It's easy to drive an Uber, to be quite honest with you.
Those are great examples. So we've been talking with Erin Donovan, who's the CEO of Conovar, for the last 25 minutes. And Erin, we're getting close to wrapping up our conversation today. So Mike, maybe you can start, give us a final thought. Erin, would you also, then maybe we'll pass it to you to give us a final thought for our audience as we conclude.
Yeah, maybe before we go there real quickly, I know we talked just before we went live, Erin, that you're going to be coming to Cleveland, my hometown, for the MX.0 Midwest event. Wanted to make sure that we talk about that. And I don't know, Mike, if you're planning to do that in the wrap up, but could you maybe explain what you're doing? Are you going to be talking about this topic, or are you going to be engaging with folks here to share what you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the MXO events, by the way. A great place, an intimate setting where you can really talk about issues that are facing manufacturers. Conovar Solutions will be exhibiting. I will also be pitching our particular video-based platform, but honestly, I'd love just to hear more about your pain points, the reality of what your workplace looks like, because that makes me a more informed CEO. I am on the floor with my clients. I don't work just out of my luxurious office. So the more questions and conversations I can be a part of, the richer partner I can be.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to having you here in Cleveland, hosting you. As I said before, September is a great time to be in Cleveland. So certainly welcome everybody who's listening to sign up and get here. And I think we'll give the link at the end of the broadcast probably. So, I mean, as far as takeaways, I mean, this has been fantastic for me, Erin. I really, really appreciate it. And I think you started off by talking about tribal knowledge and the workers being the cultural glue. And I think that's really, really insightful and really powerful, and how people, the knowledge that they have and what they have learned and the experiences that they can share with others. And there's things that they can't necessarily write down exactly how I do it, but you can watch them do it. And I think is really a powerful point. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my final thought is, my final thought is this, Mike. When I talk about legacy, one reason why I work with manufacturers is that I really believe that manufacturing has built our company. As a child of the steel mill, as someone who researched textile mills and garment factories, as an academic, we need to make sure that our legacy lasts beyond this current situation. The way to do that is to celebrate the people who've built it. So if I can be a part of that celebration, if I can make sure that their voices continue to be heard, I feel like job done.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that feedback. So really appreciate your thoughts and insights today on capturing tribal knowledge and knowledge sharing in general. So Mike mentioned and Erin that she's going to be at MXO Midwest. And so for those interested in participating, the MXO Midwest event will be happening on September 16th and 17th. Just really 6 weeks away. Oh my gosh, it's right on the doorstep, isn't it? In Cleveland. Please register. It'll be a great conference, very intimate, chance to really interact with lots of manufacturers. So if you haven't yet signed up, I know everybody would love to see you there.
And I'm sure the early bird discount is getting ready to expire as well. So there's an incentive for signing up now.
Appreciate that. So just to kind of conclude the Industry 4.0 Club, we'd like to encourage you to take action to advance the deployment of Industry 4.0. Read an article, attend a workshop, develop a smart manufacturing roadmap, or encourage your company to do so. We just need we want people to not be left behind. We want your companies and those you work with to advance in the deployment of Industry 4.0. And we'd like to know what you decide to do. So drop us a note on our webpage at www.industry40club.com or on our LinkedIn page and let us know what you're doing to advance the deployment of Industry 4.0. We host conversations like this routinely. So if you'd also like to be a guest or share an insight with us, we'd love to have you on the show. Again, you can reach us on our website or our LinkedIn page. And on behalf of the club, Erin, thank you for joining us. And Mike, thank you as well. And we wish everybody a good rest of the day and week.
Excellent. Thank you, Erin. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.